Hey guys, welcome to the channel. My name is Alex and today we're going to talk about a watch in my collection that doesn't get that much wrist time, but every time I take it out from the safe, it puts a smile on my face. Wow, that rhymed actually, I didn't even plan for that. So in this video we're going to take a closer look at the IWC Portofino Romana reference number 2050 from the mid-90s. So as I just said in the intro, this is a watch I rarely wear. I do use it for special occasions, but it is a watch that puts a smile on my face every time I take it out from the bank vault. And this is the funny part, because this watch might seem very expensive. It is a perpetual calendar. It is in 18 karat yellow gold, but it actually costs less than a Rolex Submariner in today's market. This watch is what I'd like to call it a hidden gem, because in today's market, people are tending to focus on the stainless steel sports models, which leaves these kind of underappreciated watches from the 80s, 90s, from respected brands such as IWC, with complications in smaller sizes, with a precious metal case, to be somehow overlooked. And I'm totally fine with that, because that means I can find these undervalued gems for a very reasonable price. And that was the case when I purchased this IWC Portofino Romana Perpetual calendar. But before we jump in and talk about the watch, it's important to understand the history and how this model was born. Because as you might know, during the late 70s and during the 80s, the quartz crisis affected the Swiss watch industry tremendously, and many respectable and rich heritage brands actually died, quite frankly, under this time period. And many brands were struggling. In the mid-80s, in 1985, Mr. Kurt Klaus, that is a legendary watchmaker that was working for IWC, he came up with the idea to make a very complicated watch. He developed a perpetual calendar module for the IWC Da Vinci model that was a chronograph with the famous Valjoux 7750 movement. And he put this module on top of that particular watch, launched it in 1985, and it saved IWC, and in some way it also saved the Swiss watch industry. And the interesting part about this movement is that it was a very user-friendly perpetual calendar. So you could correct everything by just using the crown. And at this time, I mean, perpetual calendars were not so user-friendly. It usually had to be adjusted by a watchmaker. So at the time, it was a big thing. So 9 years later, after they introduced the Da Vinci model, they came up with this one. So in 1994, they introduced the IWC Portofino Romana reference number 2050. On the contrary from the Da Vinci, this was not an automatic watch. It was actually manual winding, but this led up to the remarkable thinness of the watch at only 6 millimeters. And at this time of introduction in the mid-90s, this was actually the thinnest mechanical perpetual calendar on the market. On the downside, considering it's a perpetual calendar, it was manual winding, and it's based on a Jaeger-LeCoultre caliber that's only 3.15 millimeters thick. Yes, we have a very slim and elegant case profile, but a manual winding movement. So that's a bit tricky, you know, when you have a perpetual calendar that's manual winding, you can't really just put it in the winder and keep it running, so to say. So let's talk a bit about the watch and how it sits on the wrist. We have a 36 millimeter yellow gold case. The thickness is 6 millimeter and the lug-to-lug length is around 41-42 millimeter. So it's a very elegantly proportioned watch, and I like how it sits on my 16.5 centimeter wrist. It slides under the cuff nicely and it's very elegant in its appearance. The case is polished in all its surfaces. It has a closed case back and is splash proof, I said, because it's water resistant down to 30 meters. I like how the lugs are angled, pretty aggressive angle of the lugs. It does give the watch a really snug fit on the wrist. And as I said, my wrists are 16.5 centimeters, so I'd say this watch hits the sweet spot for me in terms of wearability. Moving along from the case and to the dial, we have a silver dial that is very elegant, I'd say. We have Roman numerals that are, you know, if you don't think about them, you don't really see them. That's how well hidden they are, so to say, in plain sight, because they are quite small and placed on the very outer edge of the dial. So with those smaller Roman numerals, it gives the dial more space. So the dial layout, in my opinion, is very nice, because sometimes when we look at perpetual calendars, to fit all the displays for the date, month, moon phase, year, etc., it can be quite busy. But this one has a lot of air, so to say, on the dial, which I like, and which is one of the biggest reasons why I bought this watch, because of how well balanced it is. So for the dial layout, we have the moon phase at 12 o'clock, we have the date indicator at 3 o'clock, the month indicator at 6 o'clock, and the day indicator at 9 o'clock. And between the day indicator and the month indicator, we have a small window for the year. And in comparison to the Da Vinci model that had 4 digits for the year, this one has only 2. And that's because of the movement that they choose for this watch. So it couldn't really fit with all 4, and it's much slimmer than the Da Vinci models. The hands are also very elegant. There's a mix between different hand styles. For the hour and minute hand, we have leaf hands, I'd call these, and for the subdials, we have sword hands. And the hands are blued, which gives the watch a very nice contrast and very elegant, I'd say. So in different lighting conditions, you can really see these blue hands pop, and that's just a beautiful design feature on this watch. The moon phase has a disc that resembles aventurine. It's not aventurine, but it has some kind of shimmering effect that also plays very nicely in light. So I'd say that the dial is very nicely executed, and it really appeals me. One thing I also like about this watch is that it's a two-hander, so to say, so we only have an hour and minute hand and no running seconds hand. And that just gives it a sophisticated look. There's nothing that's disturbing you or ticking. So it's very nice to just lay your eyes on and just see the time and admire all these complications and the overall aesthetics of the watch. For the bracelet, I'm looking to change this one actually, because it's rarely that I use that formal clothing, which I think this alligator strap is. It's a glossy alligator strap in black that pairs very well with formal clothing, but I'd like to dress this watch down a bit and put it on a Saffiano strap, for example, in navy or something like that. We'll see, I haven't really decided. The buckle is a tang buckle in 18 karat yellow gold with the IWC logo. So strap-wise, it's fine. It's a bit stiff, but I'll probably change it very soon. Movement-wise, we talked about the movement a bit already. It's based on the Jaeger-LeCoultre Caliber 849 Ultra Thin, so it's a manual winding movement with a perpetual calendar module added on top. The movement is 3.15 millimeters thick with the perpetual calendar movement added on top. And without the perpetual calendar movement, it's only 1.85 millimeters thick. So it's a very thin movement that's beautiful. Unfortunately, we can't see it through the closed case back, but it is what it is. And for me, it doesn't really matter that much. So how did this watch end up in my collection? Well, I've been eyeing these for a couple of years back and forth. I've always thought that it was a very good price for a perpetual calendar from IWC in 18 karat yellow gold. And when I started to look into these watches, they were trading around 6, 7, 8,000 euros, which is very affordable, I'd say, considering what you get. You get an 18 karat yellow gold perpetual calendar from IWC for less than many of the sports watches or other brands on the market. And that is, for me, a very good value proposition if you're looking for something very complicated but quite affordable. However, this was a couple of years back. Right now on the market, I'd say you can pick one of these up for around 10,000 euros, depending on condition, box and papers, etc. And this watch is also available in platinum, and the platinum versions do have a slightly higher premium. So it's basically a choice of metal if you prefer white metal or yellow metal. But I'd say even at the current market price at around 10,000 euros, you get a lot of value for the money. And that's what I like. I like to chase after these a bit more undervalued, underappreciated watches. And this was my first Perpetual calendar, so it was a great opportunity to try on one of the more complicated watches at the market for a very reasonable price tag. As you can see here, the year indicator is set to 1996, and I bought this watch from a dealer that probably had this one from the first owner. The watch was in immaculate condition. I think it was never worn because the strap looked totally unworn to me, and the case had virtually no scratches at all. This watch I'd like to try and keep in such a pristine condition, and that's probably why I don't wear it that much. But every time I take it out from the bank vault, I feel like, wow, I really should use this watch more. So for me, overall, this is just a beautiful watch. It's a very well-balanced Perpetual calendar. It's not too busy. It has great proportions for the case, 36 millimeter in diameter, 6 millimeters thick, good spacing on the dial. I don't like too busy dials. This one has enough air for me to really enjoy it and look at it and see a very beautiful timepiece on my wrist. I receive a lot of comments from people, watch nerds and not watch nerds, whenever I wear this watch. Most of the people are amazed by the looks of it and that it is such a beautiful timepiece. And when they hear the price point, they're like, wow, I thought it was much more expensive. So that's it, guys, for this time. Let me know in the comment section what you think about this beautiful watch. If you're as sold, so to say, on it as I am. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you like the video. And thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time.